Today, when you can easily get light bulbs to fit your lamps and your ATM card works internationally in all ATM machines, it's hard to imagine a time when almost nothing was standardized. Based on archaeological relics discovered in northern Africa and the Middle East, standardization can be traced back to the ancient civilizations of Babylon and early Egypt. The earliest standards were the physical standards for weights and measures. Over time, as trade and commerce developed, there evolved written documents that set mutually agreed upon standards for products and services, such as agriculture, ships, buildings, and weapons. Initially, these standards were part of individual contracts between suppliers and purchasers. Later, the same standards came to be used across a range of transactions, forming the basis for modern standardization. After the industrialization of the early 19th century, the absence of standardization caused significant inefficiencies and endangered public safety. We have already seen the consequences of the Baltimore fire in 1904. Some other examples of the early 20th century include inconsistent railroad track widths early on that caused delays when wheels had to be changed at connecting points, as well as dangerous boiler explosions in 1910 caused by excessive temperatures. As time and technology progressed, so did standardization. Today, standards developers seek to achieve a great precision of uniformity, since the smallest micro-deviation from perfect tolerances can cause airplanes to malfunction or satellites to go off course. In today's society, standardization provides order and convenience. It's the reason why our PCs and laptops can be networked, our phone calls are delivered, our power stays on, and so much more. Over the past 100 years, standardization has expanded beyond manufacturing to management, service industries, education, agriculture, and many other areas. Standardization is the process that encompasses the initiation, development, and application of standards documents. It's the process of merging scientific research with applied experience to determine the precise, optimum technical requirements for an aspect of technology. The output of this merger is the authoritative document called a standard. Standardization is recognized as an essential discipline for all global marketplace players, who must strive to be competitive. Today, companies have integrated standardization as a major technical and commercial element in business planning. They are aware that they must play an active role to assert their interests or be prepared to accept standards established without them. What exactly is a standard? ISO IEC Guide 2, 2004 defines it as a document established by consensus and approved by a recognized body that provides for common and repeated use, rules, guidelines, or characteristics for activities or their results aimed at the achievement of the optimum degree of order in a given context. Let's use that as a working definition. Standards address issues ranging from product compatibility to consumer safety and health concerns. Standards also simplify product development and reduce non-value-adding costs, thereby increasing users' ability to compare competing products. Standards are the fundamental building blocks for international trade. Only through the use of standards can requirements for interconnectivity and interoperability be ensured, and the credibility of new products and new markets verified, enabling the rapid implementation of technology. Standards may be classified in many ways. We will discuss a few of the common classifications you will hear about, but there are others. One type of classification concerns the subject of the standard. We can say that a standard is a product standard, a process standard, or a service standard. Product standards establish qualities or requirements for a product to ensure that it will serve its purpose effectively. Process standards specify requirements to be met by a process, such as an assembly line operation, in order to function effectively. Service standards, such as for repairing a car, establish requirements to be met in order to achieve the designated purpose effectively. Another type of classification describes the content of the standard. We can say that a standard is a design standard or a performance standard. A design standard describes how a product should be made or defines the exact materials to be used. A performance standard defines how a product is expected to function after it is made. Such a standard may include methods for testing. Another classification you may hear about is the distinction between a de jure standard and a de facto standard. De jure standards, also called formal standards, are developed by formal standards organizations using well-established procedures based on openness, transparency, balance, due process, and the right of appeal. Numerous formal standards organizations exist, such as ISO, IEEE, GB, ANSI, World Wide Web Consortium, W3C, ASTM International, Internet Engineering Task Force, IETF, Health Level 7, HL7, to name just a few. Among the thousands of de jure standards developed by these and other organizations are the IPv6 protocols of the IETF, IEEE 1800, System Verilog, and ISO 9000. Some technical specifications developed outside the formal processes gain wide acceptance in the marketplace and become de facto standards as a result of many organizations and individuals adopting them. Yet another classification scheme distinguishes between voluntary standards, which by themselves impose no obligations regarding use, and mandatory standards. There are many differences around the world in the definitions of voluntary and mandatory standards and the status of standards in government regulations. Standards are important for many reasons. In essence, they are a common language for all stakeholders: the public, manufacturers, consumers, governments, businesses, and educators. They help lower the costs of implementation, training, manufacturing, and production. They help ensure safety, reliability, and acceptance. Technology drives standards. Standards establish compatibility and interoperability. They make it easier to understand and compare competing products. They encourage innovation. Economics drives standards. Standards speed the time to market for new products. They help reduce the risk of product liability. They enable competition. International trade drives standards. The development of standards helps demonstrate social responsibility and reduces the need for regulation. In turn, standards facilitate international trade. Globalization of markets will drive more emphasis on the economic component of standardization and a demand for a balanced approach across regions. Global markets require globally relevant standards. Remember, because standards are so important in industry, industry wants new engineers to know about standards. In this video, we've started to cover some of the basics: what standards are and why they matter to industry, and the different types of standards. But there is more. Take the time in your studies to learn about standards.